Against My Will, Episode 2. Parental alienation. Does it exist? If it does exist, how do we go about measuring it? And the most important question, what do we want the courts to be doing about it? First off, parental alienation is a real thing, and I'm quite sick of hearing anybody out there try to say anything different. I'm leaving it at that. Anybody with an 8th grade education can pretty much see that one parent has the ability to alienate the other parent, and if anybody wants to have an open debate about its existence, I can make you look really stupid in 5 minutes. Look me up. Point number 2. How do we go about measuring it? And this is a very important point because within the court system, everything is evidence-based. And in order for something to be evidence-based, it needs to have scientific backing. So we need somewhere in the world where we can point to parental alienation as this scientific thing so that in a court of law, we can say, yes, this person is performing parental alienation. So this is a basic problem we've been dealing with for decades. And people like Dr. Craig Childress have bravely gone beyond the APA and the large professional organizations that won't say a damn thing about it. So how far Mr. Childress is from dead-on definition of it, I don't know, because I'm not a guru. But at least he's brave enough to actually stand up and say, this is a thing, and we need to figure out how to measure it. Okay. So measuring it. So for decades, the family court system has pointed to the DSM, which is produced by the APA, as a guide to hundreds of medical, psychological issues that people can have, right? So if you get your own copy of the DSM, you can open it up and probably find half a dozen things that you are, guilty of, that you could be, tagged for. This is important because, again, this is an evidence-based system. So we need to be able to point to something and say, hey, parental alienation is real. This is where it is. Okay? So this has been the main front for decades, where the lawyers keep pointing to the APA and saying, well, they're not saying it's a thing, so it's not a thing. And so anybody that wants to prove parental alienation in a court of law can't do a damn thing. Now, the thing that gets lost in this argument, because lawyers are very good at, hiding the truth in a bunch of words, is the reason that parental alienation doesn't fit nicely into the DSM doesn't have much to do with whether it exists or it doesn't exist. What it comes down to is the fact that parental alienation, unlike other mental disorders that affect a specific person, parental alienation is a dynamic between multiple people. So of course it's not going to neatly fall into a guide that is written to show mental disorders of an individual. It's an actual psychological thing that is occurring between multiple people. It has a scientific basis. Whether it does or does not belong in the DSM ultimately does not matter. What matters from the family court perspective is, can we or can we not prove that parental alienation exists and give courts a tool to say, hey, this person's alienating and this person is not. So ultimately, you know, whatever your target is in terms of going after the DSM, going after the APA, going after Mr. Childress, who doesn't need your assaults. What it comes down to is, what is parental alienation and how can we measure it? Third point, what do we want the courts to do about it? And this is a point that people are going to argue with me on. But given the current state of the family court system, what we want the courts to do with parental alienation is nothing. Okay? The family courts are so dysfunctional at this point. The last thing you want to do is give them laws or something new to go find innocent parents and nail them with. Okay? People are out there arguing that parental alienation should be this thing and we should go arrest people, and that sounds great in theory, but you've got a completely broken system where people are just paying lawyers for the ability to go prove somebody is something. Don't give them another tool, okay? Someday, out in the future, decades from now, we may have a tool that allows people to measure parental alienation properly and give it to the courts, and in theory, show who's alienating and who isn't. But right now, you don't want the courts with anything other than spoon-fed, very simple laws that they have to be watched like kindergartners in order to get to the right conclusions. Which brings me to the final point on this issue, which is that ultimately what we need right now to save our kids, save families, save money, save a lot of things in the system, is we need equal parenting in the court system unless there is evidence of some type of abuse. And I'll go so far as say it's physical abuse, because in the courts as they stand, you can't even prove psychological abuse. Okay? People can look the other way and be causing psychological abuse to their kids. You can't prove this crap in court. We need the courts out of our lives. So I'm going to give you a very simple definition of parental alienation that will immensely improve how the courts operate. Parental alienation, as far as the courts are concerned, should be a parent requesting more than 50% custody with zero proof of abuse. That is parental alienation.